Host Stone Cold Steve Austin coming at you with another introduction to our wrestling podcast, because I know how much some of you jackasses love it when old Stone Cold Steve Austin introduces our wrestling podcast. But I will keep it short. Without further ado, the following podcast is scheduled for one fall, and today's topic, the legacy of Mick Foley, Part 1. And don't forget, you can catch us on all major streaming platforms: Spotify, Soundcloud, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and we are now part of Google Podcast. That's right, you Android users. For those of you that prefer Android over any other device, you can now find us on Google Podcast, our wrestling podcast. And I believe Abraham has a message for all of you for this particular episode.
Hi, I hope you all have a nice day.
Welcome to the O.W.P. This is our wrestling podcast. This is Dave along with Jess.
That's not true.
And Craig.
Bang, bang.
Bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. And now on to our topic today, the legacy of Mick Foley. Hit us up on Instagram at O.W.P 2019. Click on Linktree. You can find us on several platforms, including Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. And guess what, guys? We are now part of the WrestleHub family, which is all about wrestling podcasts out there. Check them out at WrestleHub on YouTube and Instagram. What's up, guys?
Hello, Dave.
Hello. What's going on?
This is going to be an emotional legacy for me because there's so much here. I have felt regret, and I've not told anybody about it since we did the Steve Austin legacy. Steve Austin is Steve Austin, right? Arguably the greatest wrestler ever. Definitely, arguably one of the biggest attractions out there ever, like in the industry ever. And we did it, and I remember listening back to it, and I wanted to kick myself because we forgot to talk about the beer truck incident and the Zamboni incident. And I was
we were young.
I was like, man, like how could we do a legacy of Steve Austin and not cover that? And so then I started thinking about some of our past legacies, and we tried a 2-part legacy with Macho Man back in the day. And for some odd reason, we soured on it. But we might be doing that with Mick Foley here. So you could be hearing part 1 right now, and we could come back with a part 2 because I don't know, I'm tossed. I don't necessarily want to do a 2-hour episode, but I mean, Foley, just making the notes here, is easily that run, right? Is easily that time spent talking about his career. He has done so much, and he has done so much for every major promotion that there has been that's been relevant in the last 25 years. And I just don't want to cut this short. I want to make sure it counts because we'll do it justice, and we'll do it right. You know that. Yeah, everything that he's done.
We were young and dumb on the podcast world back then, and we'll get it right.
Everything he's done, like it is. We were talking about this off the air. He's so calculated with his characters and his movements and his promos, and I feel like
he had to be.
His career, I think, plays out like that. There was no wasted movement. Everything meant something. Meant something so important to him, and then we felt that from him by seeing that come across the screen through his character.
Yeah, I think one thing you're never going to be able to do on a legacy of Mick Foley is please everybody. I think Mick Foley means so much to so many people, and when you first started to like him or become a fan of him and relate to him, I think just in this podcast alone, you have those hardcore guys that are just going to talk about his time in IWA in Japan, his ECW fans, WCW, WWF. You're never going to spend enough time on their piece of when they loved him, when they fell in love with him, or his most memorable moment. So it's a tough one, but we're just going to try and honor Mick in his 25-year career and everything he's done inside and out of the ring.
Well, there you go. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's get into the, my notes say, the early shit. Michael Francis Foley was born on June 7th, 1965. He's 54 years old in Bloomington, Indiana. Well, that's too bad. He played lacrosse and he wrestled in high school. His college years, he actually attended live pro wrestling events. One of them was at Madison Square Garden, where he actually witnessed the famous Superfly Shooby Wah. Jimmy Snuka splashed from the top of the cage onto Don Morocco, which, by the way, guys, back then, that was insane. To do a splash off the top of the cage, I don't think anybody understands how big of a deal that was back in the 80s, right? Or late 70s maybe at that point. That moment inspired him to become a pro wrestler. What say you?
Yeah, no, it was in the 80s. I want to say it was 83 or something like that. I should know the date of that moment, but I don't. But it's also awesome too, because not only was he there, but when they when they've done vignettes on Mick Foley, his career during the years, they can pause the footage and circle him in the crowd. You can actually see him in the Madison Square Garden crowd, seeing that
awesome.
That legendary Intercontinental Championship match in the steel cage, where Don Morocco would win the match and defend his title, but Snuka would get even with him and slam him in the middle of the cage and climb up on top of the steel cage and do his Superfly splash on it. And people talked about that for years and years and years. Now, people literally fall off the WWF headquarters, and that's a stunt now. But back then, everything was settled in the ring, and to see him do that splash, it's like where cameras were a thing, all the flash bulbs, it was really cool. And he got to see that live, and that inspired him. That made him want to become a pro wrestler at that point. He loved the drama.
Amazing.
And I think what's cool about Mick Foley is he was one of the first wrestlers. I think Matt Hardy and the Hardy Boys came kind of after that, but that I remember you seeing footage from their childhood of doing what we did. You were talking and listening to three guys that videotaped themselves, that messed around with mattresses and roped off the living room. And Jess was 50-50 booking. Jess did a lot of, I think, in the house and on the ring. But Mick Foley was like that. You saw footage of him jumping off his garage as a kid and showing that love of wrestling that you have. I think he's one of the first guys to let you in and expose kind of the love of the origins of wrestling like that. And then that's why you relate to him and love him like you do. So I think there's the component.
I guarantee you if we had gotten a hold of his tapes when we built our own ring, he would have been glad to come and hang out with us.
Yeah.
That's where he was, and he loved it.
We had a better ring. He was more of a daredevil, jumping off a roof on two mattresses, but we actually had a ring with ropes.
Yeah,
we built our own 19 by 19. Yeah. We actually did that. So,
but you can relate to him, and you see I could kind of be him.
Deal.
I'm going to live through this guy because I can kind of be him, and he's a guy that hitchhiked to Madison Square Garden from Long Island, New York guy. The story's there, and you can see in the packages and footages in retrospectives of his career, all that stuff is there. He was one of the first guys that you can see the origins of him as a kid on video or VHS. It was kind of cool.
That's awesome. When we get into his early career, he began training in 1983 at Dominic DeNucci's. Did I say that right?
I think DeNucci.
DeNucci.
Or Ducci.
Wrestling school in Pennsylvania. Ducci? What? In Pennsylvania, and he would debut there in the same year. He would get the opportunity to wrestle for the WWF as local enhancement talent for their top name stars. And during one of those matches in '86, Foley would wrestle in a tag match against the British Bulldogs, where he famously had his jaw broken due to a stiff clothesline from Dynamite Kid. I think we've all established pretty well that Dynamite Kid is a piece of shit.
You put an exclamation point on that right now. He was a bully.
Yeah, get into it, please.
He was a bully, and he was known for being assholes to enhancement talent. And Foley, in his book "Have a Nice Day," still available on Amazon, talked about how he was so excited. He's learning how to wrestle. He somehow got an in with the training camp that he was at to be a local enhancement. The jobbers that we'd watch on Saturday Morning Wrestling all the time. And so he gets there, and they look at the schedule board, and he's like, "Oh man, we're taking on the British Bulldogs." So he went to the locker room, approached them, and he said Davey Boy was fairly cool, but he was still standoffish because they were the British Bulldogs. They were famous at that point. And hey guys, how you doing? My name's Mick Foley. I'm gonna be against you guys. You let me know whatever you guys want to do. I got this spot I could do. I got this spot I could do. And he said even in his book he was super naive. to do that. And they were looking at
Oh
him
yeah,
like,
thanks. Yeah, have fun. We'll have fun out there. Yeah, get your shit
Yes,
in. All right,
yeah.
get your shit in. Yeah, we'll have
That's
fun.
exactly what they're saying. Like, oh, great. Yeah. And they were totally like being completely like sarcastic with Foley. Oh yeah, we're gonna have a great time out there, huh? Yeah, totally. Dynamite knowing right there that I'm gonna smash this guy. Like, and you go back and watch the entire match, they fucking did everything. Davey Boy was stiff, but you could tell Davey Boy was controlled. Dynamite was trying to take his head off, like with almost every move. His back suplexes that he did, the snap suplexes, he was just destroying Mick Foley in there. And that clothesline, Foley couldn't even bump right for it because he said it hurt so bad and it was so strong that he just took it like a regular person would and crumbled. He didn't bump, he crumbled. Yeah. And like, because he got hit so hard with it. And, not cool on Dynamite's part, but Foley's like, my parents were there to see me because I'm wrestling for the World Wrestling Federation. So they came to see me, and he remembers after talking with them, his jaw hurt so bad, which later he would find out that it was fractured. He couldn't even open it and talk. So he had to like fake that he was like selling an injury or whatever or something. Oh, it's all a show. But he was really fucked up bad. And it sucks that started.
He was Jack Foley, named after his dad, right? He was like a high school gym teacher or a coach at that time. I think, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's how he unfortunately got reared in the business and pretty much taught that. Yeah, you don't. It's not necessarily all fun and games. Like there are people in there that will. Yeah.
Introducing from Bloomington, Indiana, weighing 242 pounds, Jack Foley. His tag team partner from Manchester, England, weighing 228 pounds, Les Thornton.
Look at this. Ooh, my. Dynamite with the quickest, perhaps.
No, and at that point, I remember he made a decision at that point. He said, I will never put my body on the line again for... I'm just kidding. No, I will always protect myself moving forward for the rest of my life.
And Craig, I apologize for saying that Dynamite was a piece of shit right when you took a drink and you almost killed yourself. I apologize.
He was a piece of shit.
I saw that. I was like, oh, no. So, all right. So, between 83 and 91, Foley had stints in Bill Watts' UWF, CWA, WCCW as Cactus Jack Manson. He would also compete in WCW in 1990 as Cactus Jack. That's, I think, where a lot of us started to really see what he was all about. He would team with random enhancement talent and face bigger team names. After his partner would lose the match, he would attack them and drop an elbow onto him from the apron onto the concrete floor. His big signal moments came at Clash of the Champions 10, where he would lose to Mil Mascaras.
No yob.
Yep. No yob. However, during the match, Mil would knock Foley off the apron to the outside, where he would take a full bump onto the concrete floor. God, Mick, what are you doing? This caused everyone in the back to take note and told the story that Cactus Jack was indestructible and enjoyed the pain. Right? He would wrestle for the new UWF in 91 before joining WCW full time. Anything about that?
That was a big, this is where it starts. Like these are like little milestones that you hit. And I think Foley's career is full of specific milestones. I spoke earlier about how he was very like deliberate with every move. He didn't have a wasted movement. He didn't have a wasted promo, wasted word in that promo. Foley was always very calculated. That bump defined him. That back bump from the fucking apron onto the fucking concrete. Every time we saw it, and he did it multiple times throughout his career, we're like, God damn it. Like, why are you doing that? Like, but it made him. I think it was Kevin Sullivan who got him into WCW that first time. And Kevin Sullivan gave him that idea. Hey, look, we're going to use you as enhancement talent, but why don't what we'll do is we'll have a cool gimmick with you. We'll put you with another enhancement talent. You're going to lose to the bigger name tag team. But then afterwards, you're going to attack them because you're pissed off that they lost. And so like, you're going to drop your elbow on the concrete. That was the first milestone. The second one was against Mil Mascaras, where Mil Mascaras is a dickhole in real life. He's a big legend in Mexico, and they did this Clash of Champions from Texas, which had a lot of like Hispanic followers for him there. So WCW is like, oh, we'll get him over here for this match, and we'll maybe draw some crowd with him or whatever. So they put him with Foley because they're like, look, the loss won't hurt Foley, but they did run it by him in the back, where they're just like, hey, can we put this kid over on you? Or how do you want to do this tonight? No yob. He was famous for saying no yob, which is no job, and as so affectionately told on Bruce's podcast. So basically what Sullivan and Cornette talked to him about before was like, you said you do this move where you back bump onto the concrete from the apron. Are you serious? And he's like, yes. And they're like, do it here. And he's like, you sure? He's like, yes. If you're going to job to this guy and he's going to fucking be like that, you need to be the one they remember from this match. And he did. And Jim Cornette was commentating with Jim Ross. And he said, Jim Cornette said many times, I made sure I put it over like he was dead and there's no way this guy was going to get up. And how is he getting up? How the fuck is this happening? And so Jim Cornette put him over because he was like that people were already liking Foley in the back, is my point at this time. And Sullivan and Cornette were big fans of his, and they were like, dude, you got to do stuff that is going to get you over. So these sick things that you do, this elbow drop onto the concrete on the outside, no one's seen that before. And people started recognizing Foley about stuff like, oh, you're the guy who does the elbow on the concrete. Like, people started referring to Foley as that guy when he would go into certain locker rooms back here. So those were two milestones that hit right away in 1990. The elbow on the floor, onto the concrete, and then him taking the back bump onto the concrete were two things that got people to go, what? And at least some people were like, you got to watch this guy. This guy's something.
Oh, God, right on the concrete. Right on the back of his head on the concrete.
Jack is dead. He's done it this time.
And it started, other than Jim Cornette, it started a whole 3-year period for Mick Foley where he would do those things and then they did not tell the story properly, or they did not sell the move properly. So he took this move and took risks and killed himself for nothing, for mockery, for 10 seconds, for something that didn't serve him, that didn't get him over. But I think the people watching at home kind of always saw that stuff. And incidentally, mascaras is actually Spanish for dick holes. So mil mascaras means 1,000 dick holes.
Weird.
In,
1,000 dick holes
in English. So that's funny.
It's weird, yeah. But I'll tell you, I mean, not only did the fans take notice, like you said, the back took notice. And when Foley gets put into WCW, he gets put directly into a feud with Sting in 1991. We've talked about Sting several times where he'll look at something and he'll go, okay, I'll do that. Very flexible. As long as you can trust someone in the ring to take care of him. I don't think Sting had any issue with any idea as long as it made sense. And guess what? Foley's a pretty smart guy. And he and Sting had a great chemistry, and it led to other wrestlers trusting him. And that kind of gets more into open of the style of wrestling that Mick does, right? Because, Mick's not about what's in the ring. It's more about what's outside of the ring, and it kind of changes the game, right? Yes or no? What do you think? Sting
in an odd way was kind of, another milestone in the sense of like, or
he opens the door for him,
blip,
right?
Because Sting wasn't selfish. And I want to say it was in Have a Nice Day as well. He said he had a conversation with Sting. So when he learned he was going to face Sting, he's like, can I do my thing to you where I drop the elbow on the outside? And Sting's like, I'm a top guy. Why would I let you do that? And he was like, I don't know. I mean, because it makes sense and it's cool. And then Sting looked at him. He's like, okay. And he was like, that's fine. He's all, Sting just wanted to make sure that I was talking sense, that I had a plan. And Sting's like, all right, let's do that. And you're going to cover the big match here where this is like Foley's first big marquee match in WCW. I'll let you take it.
Yeah. In 92, Sting and Cactus had a Falls Count Anywhere match at Beach Blast pay-per-view. It was the best match on the show and would be Foley's personal favorite match until 1996. I mean, Falls Count Anywhere is really you're playing Cactus's tune here, right? This is where he shines. He can get so creative. Hate to say it, Cactus Jack even running the ring ropes at this point is not the best thing in the world. So taking it to where it can be more creative outside is his bag of beans, no?
Yeah, and credit to, and then matches like this and specialty matches, credit to Mick Foley. His reputation is always someone who you can work with, you can trust. Sting immediately starts out with him in WCW, and then we'll talk about this way down the road, but WWF, Undertaker's trusted in his first big feud in WWF. So like already out of the gate, showing trust and making money with I probably the two biggest guys in each of the federations, and kudos to Mick Foley and to both come out of it looking like a star.
So Bill Watts was, Booker in WCW during this time in 1992, and albeit I think it only lasted like 9 or 10 months total, but he was changing a lot of shit in WCW backstage at the time and pissing a lot of guys off. Well, Beach Blast was like the first, I think, fully pay-per-view under his control, or second or something like that. So Foley was nervous because he was just like, well, I got to go out here with Sting, and that's the world champion. And I think they were on in the middle of the card. They weren't even the main event. But Foley's like, I have to, it's my match. It's a Falls Count Anywhere match. So I got to shine here. And Foley's like, I felt really good about it. I felt awesome when we were doing it. When the match ended, I was like, wow, it was good. And when he walked back, he said Bill Watts stopped everything he was doing when Foley walked back, and he yelled to everyone in the locker room. He's like, I hope everyone watched that, because that's the fucking way you do it. And Foley was like, yes. Like Bill Watts, who had been like this dick coming into WCW backstage, he was stirring the pot and, making people uncomfortable, and he liked chaos behind the stage. That's the way Bill Watts always kind of booked and worked when he owned territories. He was just like, so he liked it. And of course he got fired like 4 months later, but everybody did in WCW at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah,
for those that don't know, what were some of Bill Watts's rules? Like, it was so opposite of what you thought wrestling should be.
Yeah, he came in there, you couldn't jump off the top rope onto a prone opponent. So if Macho Man was in WCW, he would have to change his finisher legitly, because you could not jump off the top rope to a prone opponent.
You couldn't throw anybody over the top rope either, right?
Well, that was always a WCW thing. That was to Bill Watts' defense. That wasn't his, stupidity.
I'm so sorry I made you.
He took all the mats. WWF had the bright blue mats around the outside of the ring. I don't want those. I want it all concrete. Yeah, I want it all concrete on the outside, so if you get thrown outside, it's dangerous. That's concrete. I want it visual. But it made it look like a fucking it made it look like a fucking indie promotion when he would do that. And he would turn the lights down on the crowd, so the spotlight would be on the ring because the stars are in the ring. Well, so now you have concrete exposed on the outside of the ring, just a spotlight, the crowd dark.
It looks like nobody's there.
Yeah, it looks like nobody's there. It looks like a fucking like independent promotion. That was Bill Watts' big vision for WCW, which, like I said, flopped.
That to be the greatest match of my career. Sting was genuinely flattered to hear me say that, and he'd occasionally ask me after other big matches, was mine still your favorite? I think he was actually saddened when he heard that another one replaced it. It was almost as if he were the queen in Snow White and the magic mirror broke the bad news. I couldn't stop thinking about that match all the way on the 400-mile drive home. I had the top down on my '84 Chrysler and life was good. My health was good. I'd just torn the roof off the Mobile Civic Center. I had a beautiful wife and son, and I was making 6 effing figures a year. A month later, we bought
flopped louder than shit.
A beautiful,
if you know what I'm talking about, Dave.
With a
That's too
wraparound
yeah. But to your point, God, we always get off on a run on Bill Watts. God damn it, every time. We hate it.
Let's hook him up. Hook him up.
After turning face early in 1993, Foley had a feud with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, which led to a fun brawl at Super Bowl III in February.
So real quick, I know you're going to go into the Vader thing. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry, but I do have to note that match because I think you remember this, Craig, because I want to say we watched it a lot. And he did. It was another Falls Count Anywhere match, I think, with Orndorff, and they worked together really well. And there was a spot here where Orndorff, they're on the outside of the ring and they're going down the aisle, and the guardrail. I don't think they had a ramp here at this time. I want to say Super Bowl III did not have a ramp, and so they went to the aisle, and he suplexed to Mick Foley. Paul Orndorff did. To where, imagine the metal guardrail, right? Remember that used to surround the ring? He suplexed Foley on it to where the middle of Foley's back bent over the guardrail. So imagine me suplexing you over the top of the fucking guardrail, but your body lands perfectly in the middle of the guardrail, or the guardrail lands in the middle of your body.
Yeah.
And the way Foley took that bump, you'll go back and watch it now, and he's totally in control. But we saw that and we're like, Mick is fucking insane in the best way possible. Like that was fucking nuts. Like when we saw that, we're like,
Mick just didn't want to pay for a chiropractor.
Yeah, right.
Right. That's what it was. Like you watch it and you're like, Orndorff's kind of an asshole, but like obviously like he called it, let him do it, and that was his thing. Like he would do kind of guardrail stuff. Mick Foley would let people do guardrail stuff all the time. But yeah, to where the feet don't land first, it's literally on the middle of the spine. and then you just kind of rocket your back forward after that. It was brutal. It's a brutal spot.
And not to be rude to
give.
Foley, but Foley was not in great shape, right? I mean, he was like, 300 pounds. He was doughy. And I don't mean that to be rude, but like how amazing it was that he was in control of his body. He understood like momentum and the way you flip. He understood it. And so just taking that, you would think you would have to be some great athlete to do it. But Foley was always like this. I'm not trying to be, he'll say it himself, like a roly-poly kind of body, but he was so gifted and he understood just the way, like I said, momentum worked and everything, that he could take these bumps. He would just imagine them in his head and he's like, I could probably fucking swing that shit. Like, and he would do it and he would just be like, hey, I want you to suplex me on top of the guardrail. And Mr. Wonderful's like, excuse me? Mr. Wonderful says, what? And he's like, no, go ahead. Just do it. I'm fine. Just I'll let go of me at a certain time and I'll take the bump. Don't worry. And they're like, all right. And like
he would let the Nasty Boys do that too. He would let the Nasty Boys kind of run him where he almost victory rolled on the guardrail, on top of the guardrail and over. Like he just let him do. Oh, he's a magician. It was good.
He was awesome. So yeah, go ahead, Dave. Sorry. That was a fun match from Super Bowl III. Go back and watch that if you get a chance. A lot of people don't talk about Mr. Wonderful and Cactus Jack. It's a great fun match. It's really good.
Because we're going to get into something pretty in-depth in a moment. On April 6, 1993, Mick would challenge Vader for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Despite being severely beaten by the Mastodon, Foley would win by countout. During the rematch on April 24th in 93, Harley Race would remove the padding surrounding the ring to expose the concrete. Vader actually power bombs Foley onto the exposed concrete floor. As storyline would say, Cactus Jack would be out for several months due to injury, but in real life, he was legitimately injured. He was injured for real. These injuries include a concussion and a temporary loss of feeling in his left foot. Again, I don't know if I want to blame Vader for this. I think these guys are doing what they're told, but that's just obscenely dangerous as far as I see it. Instead of playing the injury seriously, as agreed on by WCW management, they decided to turn it into a comedy storyline where several vignettes were shown of Cactus Jack having amnesia and living in the streets, which sounds fun, but I mean, they could have made it a little more realistic.
No, I'll tell you right now. You finished the sentence. There's nothing fun about these vignettes at all.
These skits would be titled "Lost in Cleveland."
Race is done. He's pulled up the mats.
Wait a minute.
Race is telling Vader something. That's the concrete, Tony. Race has removed the mats.
If he power bombs him here, Chesley, he'll kill him. Wait, whoa, no! Oh!
This started the strain of Foley because they're trusting him here to go against the world champion Vader, and knowing, just me saying that out loud, people are going to get punched in the face for real, and you just know when you put those two together. That was Foley's
Vader.
Foley's idea was to get powerbombed because they told Foley that we're gonna put you in a program with Vader and you'll have a pay-per-view payoff at one point. So Foley's like, he's gonna fucking powerbomb me on the outside. Like, I have to. He's gonna do his finisher on the outside. It's going to fuck me up, but he's like, we're going to play it off like it's a real injury, but I'm going to come back from it. I'm going to show some humanity. The crowd's going to sympathize with him, and then they're going to be so thirsty for Cactus to fucking finally come back and be the maniac and go after Vader and kill him, because Vader's been bullying people for the last year, So instead, WCW's like, what if hear me out, we produce vignettes where you have amnesia, okay, and we'll do 3 or 4 weeks in a row of these. So what WCW did, because this is fucking Bischoff's fault, Bischoff was pushing production for everything good that Bischoff did for the arenas and lit them up and put the bright mats back on the outside of the ring and tried to make the product look more more high class. He failed in the production vignette department because Bischoff was just trying to find his ground to his defense. So they did these in the same vein that they fucking did, remember the Beach Blast promotion in 1993 where Sid and Vader were on the beach in flip-flops and a midget planted a bomb on a boat. It was like a mini movie. Yeah. And then they also did the White Castle of Fear in February of 93. So this was between that. So they said, why don't we do these vignettes where they literally they didn't use Missy Hyatt or some other interviewer that they had, they literally filmed it like it was like a mini movie. So they hired an actress to play a reporter that was going out on the streets looking for Cactus Jack from some news fucking department. They made up the news network. And so they're going out, she's interviewing obvious actors. Then they finally find him like living with a bunch of homeless people by these trash cans and all that stuff. And he didn't know. She would call him, "Hey, Cactus, Cactus." I don't know who Cactus is. They hired actresses and actors to play his wife and children. And I brought your wife and children here with you. Oh, Mick, come home. Or, Cactus, come home.
Oh my God, that's
home.
right. Oh my God, that's like, Daddy, Daddy.
Like, yeah, Daddy. The kids are all Daddy, Daddy. These are all vignettes that they played like over like a 3 or 4 week span. It was fucking terrible and awful and as hokey as you could. I'm not even doing it justice right now. It was so hokey. So Foley's pissed in real life because he's like, I took a power bomb on the fucking concrete from your Monster World champion.
Was this the Excedrin number 9 moment too, where Bobby Heenan sold this or was that completely? That was another one.
That's later. That is really what tipped Foley over the edge. But I'm glad you brought that up because that is a very big touching point. So Foley's pissed off at this point because he's just like, I wanted you guys to play this seriously and maybe have vignettes where I'm talking as a real human about how I didn't think I could continue. I didn't think, I've never felt pain like that. He powerbombed.
Which it would have been amazing, by the way.
But then that's when Foley kind of started realizing that I don't think I'm in their long-term plan. So I'll let you go. I'll let you continue on, Dave. But this is where it started to creep into Foley's head. Like, I think they're just fucking using me. I don't think they have any long-term plans.
Jack. Cactus Jack.
Why do you call me by that name? Oh, I see. Swampy. He told you my name was Jack. But I'm just a simple sailor with no name. I'm afraid Swampy's a bit adrift. Too much shore leave.
There's your Jack. Now where's mine? Oh. I told you weren't going to like what you see. I'm out of here.
And where might that be, matey? To the bottom of a bottle?
I liked him better when he was a wrestler.
You can always come to me for money, but not to spend on alcohol, Wendell.
I hate that name, Jack.
Doesn't the name Cactus Jack mean anything to you?
Oh, some have called me that name before, but I'm afraid they're sailing by a different compass. There must be someone out there who looks like me.
There ain't nobody like
But he was still a company man. He did what he was told, right?
Yeah.
He would return in September of '93, vowing revenge on Vader. At Halloween.
He remembered who he was. He lost the amnesia, and
were his kids okay? His kids are okay.
Yeah, his kids and his wife are fine. Okay. He moved back in.
They all got a check. They were fine.
Yeah.
So Cactus and Vader would main event the card in a Texas death match. This is one of the most brutal matches from an American wrestling promotion. Cactus would lose the bout due to Harley Race shocking him with a cattle prod. By the way.
So this is the main event of Halloween Havoc 93, the big payoff. And holy shit, like you can watch that match to this day. And that's still one of the most brutal matches I've ever seen between Vader and Cactus. And definitely at the time, the most violent wrestling match I think American wrestling had ever produced, like on this continent. Japan had been doing a lot of, barbed wire shit and stuff we'll get to later. But this, for a U.S. promotion, WCW, like to put something this violent out, it was brutal. And there's a spot, Craig, that I'll let you talk about on the rampway that to this day I can still watch, and it just takes my breath away. It really took Foley's breath away, but it takes my breath away.
Yeah, we wore out probably a couple of VCRs just rewinding this spot. It's Vader and Cactus on the rampway, in the middle of the rampway, that kind of hard. It was mic'd, but it's just that thud of plywood and whatever. It had no give. It had carpet on it. Mick Foley was piggybacking, had jumped on Vader's back, if I recall correctly. And Vader you can talk about it 1,000 times and analyze it and have Mythbusters go through it. There's just no way you can protect Mick Foley on this spot at all, because Vader just jumps up, kicks his legs out, and puts the full force of his 350, 400 pounds on kind of the chest and body of Mick Foley on that hard ramp. And the sound of the sickening thud that massive humanity hits that on that kind of rampway, and then just kind of the crowd just groaning. And I think there's a backstory of what, and Jess, I think Mick Foley whispers something in Vader's ear and what he wanted to happen. You have a full respect for it, but it's so unnecessary, and there's just no protecting him whatsoever, protecting Mick Foley at all. And it's just the sound. I'll never forget it.
Like Jesse Ventura was commentating with Shivani here, and Jesse Ventura usually goes with the flow on everything. And I'll never forget when they did that spot, Jesse just goes, "Whoa." And was like quiet. And Ventura's never usually at a loss for words. And he was like, "Whoa." And you could tell Shivani was like not having it. He was just like, Shivani was all like sad and like just shocked, like when he saw that spot. Yeah, Craig described it perfectly. And then Mick Foley in his book Have a Nice Day said that he whispered to Vader like don't hold back or something like that, like really fall back on me, fuck me up. And
follow
Foley
me,
was
fat boy.
Yeah, he was so discouraged. He's like, "You look fat all the time." He's like, "Wow." Just fell back on him. Because Foley was so upset with the way WCW had handled this, with the corny skits that they made him do instead of making it realistic and all that. And he knew at this point, like, they don't have long-term plans for me. Like, they pretty much told him before the Halloween Havoc match, like, this is your guys' blow-off, match. And he's like, "What? Like, what are you talking about? Like, we could wrestle for another year." Like,
this is still hot. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when he knew that shit. That's when he knew it wasn't. So he was frustrated and pissed.
Vader carrying him back up to the runway, back to the graves again. Oh, falls back with him. Oh. Whoa. That was 400 and some pounds.
Yeah.
Watch out for Race, too.
He broke some ribs here. He had to break some ribs.
Vader with the chair. He's measuring him.
Well, he had an inkling, right? Because he would fall down the card over the next year. But in '94, Vader and Cactus would face off during a WCW tour of Germany. He was thrown over the top rope, and he would get his neck caught between the top and the middle ropes. He'd done that spot several times, but he didn't have time to get used to this ring, and the ropes were tighter than usual. This actual result gets his ear almost completely ripped off, right? And when he returns inside the ring, Vader just lands a blow that takes the ear off completely. After that tour ended, Mick was convinced, we can hype this. This is a real life situation. We could reunite the Cactus Jack and Vader feud. However, Bischoff was like, this is way too violent. It's not working. He didn't think it had anything left. And this started the strain. Like you said, this really started the strain between Foley and WCW, right?
So, and this is Craig and I, Craig brought this up a little while ago, the Excedrin comment. He was pissed off because he told him, like, the guy ripped my ear off. We can do something. And Bischoff's like, "Listen, I'm trying to take this company a different direction. Now, I will defend Eric Bischoff. This is legit. This is sound." Bischoff is like, I'm going to a different direction with this company. We're like this close to hiring Hulk, and we're trying to be a little bit more family oriented because we got to compete with Vince. We have to. So we got to stop losing fucking money. This company's been bleeding money since Turner bought it.
Yeah, they were hemorrhaging.
Yeah, so I mean, since '88, the company was losing money year after year. And so he's just like, "Look, I'm not going to promote this kind of violence. I just don't have that place for you. I'm sorry. Like, it's just not going to happen." But they did allow them to have another match, Vader and Cactus, on WCW Saturday Night. Ironically, a year before was when they did the whole powerbomb angle or whatever on the concrete. So Foley thought he would be slick and be like, "Vader, powerbomb me again on the concrete." It's kind of like a year anniversary to it. Like, do it. And they have to give us the due. They have to be like, yes, we're going to go with Vader and Cactus. Cactus is still determined to change their mind. So they powerbomb it, and he said he did the whole match or whatever. After he got home, and it aired like a week later because WCW Saturday Night was pre-taped. He couldn't wait to watch it because he's like, they cannot ignore how good Vader and I are going to be. He said he watched the match. The match was good. Here comes the powerbomb spot. Here it comes. Like, at the very least, Shivani and Heenan, who were the commentators, have to acknowledge that 1 year ago, the same thing happened. Oh my God, do something to hype it up or whatever. He said he power bombs me on the concrete floor. And all Bobby Heenan says was like, wow, talk about Excedrin headache number 9.
No reference to the injury of exactly 1 year ago yet, but now the story would surely unfold. Vader picked me up for the powerbomb and sent me crashing down to the concrete. Splat! To tell you the truth, this one actually looked more devastating than the one in '93. I listened for the brilliant call. Sometimes the right words can really cement an image in the fans' minds. Here it comes. Bobby the Brain Heenan was the first to comment on this historic career-turning moment. That'll give you Excedrin headache number 9, said the Brain, with about as much raw and naked emotion as Al Gore on sedatives. Indeed it will.
And that was it.
Added Tony.
And that's when he knew right there, like, they don't care about me. They don't see a future with me. They don't give a shit about what I'm doing with my body and how I'm, trying to do something different for them and give them a different look. But I'm going to say it. I know this hurts. But think about every other wrestler besides Cactus back then. They were not doing what he was doing. Vader was hurting people, but Cactus Jack was getting hurt, and he was selling in a different way than most people were. I don't blame Eric Bischoff. I'm sorry. Like, he had in '94, who did he have by this time? He had Flair. They were going to get Hogan. He had Rude. He had Sting. He had all these bright characters that could traditionally wrestle like a traditional wrestler would. And getting Hogan and getting all, you got to start appealing to families at this point. He could not do it. Foley it's easy to look back and shit on Bischoff for that, but really Foley was the anomaly. Is that the right word I'm looking for? He was the different, he stuck out in a weird way, not a bad way, but not a good way in the direction the company was going in. So
I hate to say it, at the end of the day, if you're hemorrhaging money every year, you're going to look at your main event and you're going to go, this is not working. So what do I do to fix that? And Mick Foley was not the problem.
Right.
He was in the problem. And at that point, I don't know if Bischoff could tell the difference. So I would never want to try to call him out for that.
I'll play devil's advocate and say that a lot of people, Vince McMahon, made a lot of money by listening to Mick on ideas and fleshing things out. So if Mick had an idea, and whether it's foam ears or doing the what, because you don't have an ear 20 minutes or 20 years earlier, 20 minutes earlier, or doing something with the fact that the man is ripped off your ear, I think there was money to be made with it. But I completely understand the point of it's a little brutal. It's not PG. We need to sell some of our own kind of Southern ice cream bars here. I totally get it. And then I know we keep talking about his book. One of the things that Foley did, which is impressive, is I think he wrote the quintessential best wrestling biography that's ever been done, and that's the first Have a Nice Day. So if you have not read that, go back and read it. Get it from Amazon. It's fantastic.
It reads so well. It reads so well. It's one of the best wrestling documentaries I've ever read.
I think it's between that and Bret Hart's kind of huge book. It's like the best of all time, but it was so different. The backstage stories, what's in the man's head, breaking out in the business. It was the beginning of the next few years of really cool wrestling biographies, and Mick started it, I believe. Go back and kind of get his first 2 books.
You might not get a Jericho biography without a Foley biography, yeah?
Yeah. You know what? Actually, that's very true. Jericho's got 3 very good ones, but I think that his first one came after that. But yeah, I mean, very true. All of them. I think WWE books in general.
But it kind of starts with Mick, is what you're saying. Yeah, I get that. Even in spite of all that, he would be part of some classic tag team matches in WCW, including an amazing street fight at Spring Stampede and Slamboree. Sorry, 2 of them. He would win the WCW Tag Team Championship with Kevin Sullivan.
Oh, God.
God damn it.
Yeah, I know.
That's when you know you're on the way out, by the way.
Yeah, God damn it. In 94, they defeated the Nasty Boys in a Philadelphia street.
So we did a review of Slamboree 94, which was the first one. The second one Spring Stampede. The second one was a month and a half later at Slamboree 94, where instead of Max Payne as his partner, he had Kevin Sullivan. And that was just as brutal, that match too. It was a Philadelphia street fight, and there was fucking hockey sticks and it was I can't do it justice. I know we covered it in detail watching Spring Stampede 94 in our archives. But those two matches, man, again, the man just would not fucking be denied. Cool. You want to throw me down in the middle of the card? Then I'll do Falls Count Anywhere matches in the tag team division. And and Nasty Boys were like perfect partners. They're like, sounds good. Like, what can I throw you off of? And he's like, what won't you throw me off of? And that marriage made in heaven.
They would take it, but they would dish it.
Yeah,
consistently
it was crazy.
stealing the show, right? Like, so these three, no matter what they did and how much they shit on him and didn't push him and underutilized him, consistently stole the show on all of these. Go back just to watch all these tag matches and Cactus and Foley and everything he did during this period in WCW. He steals the show.
Yeah. Oh, he catches him with the stick. There's a cover. 1, 2, 3.
The winners and new, ladies and gentlemen, the winners and new champions, Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan.
Kevin Sullivan didn't realize what's going on. He's still fighting on the floor, but Cactus has won it.
The winners and new champions, new heavyweight tag team champions.
This is what's really interesting. During this time, Bischoff had an agreement with Paul Heyman to lend WCW talent to ECW. Foley goes on down there representing WCW. He brought his tag team title with him during an intense promo, and I really believe this is how Foley felt. So this is big, right? He actually spits on the WCW Tag Team Championship while attempting to make a point. Eric Bischoff apparently takes this as an insult. He decides to part ways with Foley, and Foley actually loses a loser leaves WCW match at Fall Brawl, in September of '94.
To Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah, to Kevin Sullivan.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Look, like, also to piggyback on my point was Bischoff always gets the shit. Oh, what a fucking idiot. You fired Steve Austin. Oh, man. What a fucking idiot. You fired Mick Foley. Oh, man. Why does Vince never get shit on? Vince lost Hall and Nash and let them walk.
He lost.
No,
Moxley.
I don't think I've ever heard any criticism of, oh, Vince, you fucking idiot. They walked right over to WCW and made the NWO. What an idiot. Vince never gets critique like that. But Bischoff gets shit on for firing Steve Austin.
He lost Hogan.
For firing Steve Austin and for letting Mick Foley go. But listen, let's be honest, and I will defend Bischoff here. I talked about the family direction they wanted to go into, but he was arguably, Foley was more over than Austin was at this point in their careers.
Sure.
I mean, so there was no room for that hardcore stuff in WCW because he was going a different direction, and he wasn't the Mick Foley that we knew him to be. Like, we saw so much more growth from him in the WWF afterwards because they had to in 96 and 97 while WCW was beating the shit out of them. While WCW was beating the shit out of them because he let two people go over to the competition, but yet Bischoff gets shit on for firing a nobody in Steve Austin. Let's be honest, and a higher mid-card wrestler in Mick Foley, who did an unusual style that didn't mesh with most other styles. Like,
not to get too much off the subject, but Steve Austin will tell you legit, if he had not been fired, he would not have become Stone Cold Steve Austin because he would not have done the promo work with Paul Heyman. He would not have been able to have a voice in WWF, soon WWE, to say, I'm not the fucking ringmaster. This is not going to work. Okay, figure it out. And he does figure it out. You would not, if he had stayed with WCW, none of that would have happened. So, hey, Bischoff, I'm going to say thanks. Like,
it all works out, right? It
all works out.
Yeah, it all works out. Yeah, and that's also the importance of having competition and two separate companies that don't own each other because you can fucking do that. So I've never really shit on Bischoff for that because I'm like, that's not fair to say. Nobody knew what Austin was going to become. Come on. The second coming of Hulk Hogan, really? When people saw him going, like, people really went like, that's Hulk Hogan number 2 right there, you dumb shit. Like, no, nobody said that. When Foley got fired, that's a guy that's going to play 3 characters and get thrown off a Hell in the Cell and be super fucking famous. No, nobody knew that. Like nobody. So Bischoff, I'm sorry, Bischoff gets a pass on this one.
I'm not that kind of guy that's hindsight.
It sucks because we're so emotionally attached to Mick Foley, and we love him. We feel like we know him because he's that kind of guy. He seems personable like that, and we've all read his books, right?
Yeah.
So like and as we go through these notes, we're invested in him. Our heart is his heart. So yes, it's easy to everything that he did with Vader, the way he approached Sting, the way he was so like politically smart the way he approached Sting and talked to Sting about this is what I want to do and here's how I want to wrestle. It'll make you look good. Trust me. Like, yes, it's easy to get mad, but at the time, look at the landscape. He had to go. I'm glad he went. Fuck. Like, right? Like,
well, you could argue that if Austin and Cactus don't leave, you don't have a Monday Night War. Not to the intensity that.
Well, they're key players. Right? I mean, Hall and Nash had to go on one side, and these two guys had to go on the other side, and it worked.
Right, and even for Foley's own legacy, you spend a year and a half building your legacy as the king of hardcore, becoming immortal in ECW, cutting your chops and finding out what's important, and Smoky Mountain and Japan, and those kind of matches, and building that his reputation that kind of made him kind of succeed when he got hired by WWF. So who knows what could have happened, but I think it's good to be pushed out of the nest and get away and reinvent yourself a little bit and grind. And hey,
it's funny. Dave is going to cover what you just talked about right now. And in my notes, it's a small paragraph, but as we cover this, I am going to constantly like reiterate that this time was the most, I don't even know if I can do it justice. This time was so crucial to Foley's growth as a performer here. Even though we talked about some great stuff and some great like mental angles he had in WCW and his philosophy was dead on and whatever, he needed this time before he went to WWF in ECW, Smoky Mountain, in Japan that Dave will lead us into right now. Like he needed it to grow. This is so fucking important to his legacy right here. It really is.
Yeah, he actually appears on Jim Cornette's Smoky Mountain Wrestling at the end of 1994, and he wrestled their top stars there. In 95, Foley travels to IWA Japan. He competes against Terry Funk and, I'm sorry, help me with that. Shoji?
Yeah, Soji Nakamaki, I think.
Shoji Nakamaki in the infamous death matches. These would become hot items on the tape trading market. I remember tape trading. Jess is infamous for tape trading during this time frame. He got a lot of tapes that we would never see without it.
These were some of them. I got these death matches because I love Foley, so I got a lot of these. Go ahead, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're talking about explosions, glass, thumbtacks, barbed wire, chairs. These matches were brutal, and they further cemented Foley's reputation as a hardcore wrestler. This changes the game for him.
We talked about Terry Funk and Shoji, and those were the commonly traded matches. But there was also a tournament they had in the IWA where every match in the tournament was a fucking death match. And one of the other people that he fought Terry Bam Bam Gordy.
Watch that today. That's amazing.
For those of you who do not know Terry Bam Bam Gordy, he looked a little doughy, but he was a cornbread country motherfucker, and he was part of the Freebirds, the original Freebirds, and that's where he got the majority of his fame from. But he was legitly like 330, 340 pounds of like 6'5", like big country boy, not a defined muscle guy, just fucking big. Like he's one of those guys that are just like, excuse me, like and he's that guy. But Terry Gordy was very, very fucking gifted in the wrestling ring. And I remember being so fucking excited and horrified at the same time watching their death match in IWA. Holy shit, man. Like Gordy, I think, was kind of at the end of his career-ish here at this point, but he still performed well. He did no-sell a lot in this match, and it bothered me a little bit because I love Foley so much. I know how giving Mick is, and you should never no-sell against Mick. There's no fucking reason to ever shit on Mick like that. But Gordy was Gordy. He was known as his own fucking island, man. And so this fucking match, like I watched it a couple days ago in preparation for this, and I had forgotten at some of the fucking spots there. You know how when Flair gets whipped into the buckle and he whips upside down, he runs on the apron on the outside and he climbs up the rope, but the guy always cuts him off and then slams Flair from the top rope down. Gordy did the reverse to Foley, he slammed him from the apron to the outside of the ring from the top rope.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? When I forgot about that. And I was like, I think my words were, what the fuck? Like I said it out loud. I was like, what the fuck? There was another spot where they built like this little, it was like a piece of plywood and they put 2x4s around it as like a rim. So smartly, so they could fill it with thumbtacks so the thumbtacks wouldn't loosely fall all over the ring. Yeah. So it kept thumbtacks as like in this little like box or
it's like a
bowl.
handy like drink tray that you have on a coffee table. But it was from beginning to the end of the match, it was in smack dab in the middle of the ring with 1,000 thumbtacks, I think almost glued upside down in it to where every thumbtack, so it's always there and they have to whip each other around it unless you're going in it.
Yeah, they did the drama where they try to push each other's face into it and the guy would get free. So eventually, Foley's face ended up going into it. So fucking Gordy puts Foley's face on the thumbtacks, lays them on the thumbtacks, pushes them into the thumbtacks, then stands up and kicks Mick Foley's head to kick him into the fucking thumbtacks again.
Wearing those cowboy boots to protect his feet from those thumbtacks.
Oh, his face is... Oh, and he stomps his head right in there.
Drove the thumbtacks into the temple of poor Cactus Jack.
Can you imagine the sting? Oh, dear.
Screaming
in like an American History X curb stomp. Like
yes. Oh. And I was like, fuck me. Like, it was insane. They got
in
barbed
a baseball
wire.
stadium in Japan. Yeah.
Yeah. There was probably like 15,000 people like watching that shit. And it was like, holy God. Like
Foley gets busted open hard way, I think, within the first couple minutes because he's not protecting himself and Gordy's just popping him like right in the face.
Yes.
And he's so like, he always just allow people to just hit him in his eye and he must have a...
Yeah, Mick's like just...
Yeah, I don't think Gordy was being a dick. I think Gordy was...
not at all.
Probably Gordy was surprised like, aren't you going to... You need to block this shit.
Yeah,
I'm really
put your hands up or...
Yeah, I'm really going to fucking hit you.
No, Mick's like,
you watch that. I don't know that YouTube has some like guys commentating, which I think probably put the tape together, but it shows a really cool promo from Foley before he goes in the ring with Gordy about like the king of the death match is not the one who knows the most moves. It's the guy that can take the most moves. Instead of has a really cool promo. And then Gordy like there's a shot, he cuts to Gordy and his promo is just like, I'm gonna kick his ass, or like whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then Foley goes over, kind of even after that, kind of curb stomp in, and then it cuts to Foley saying like, "He took it to me," or like whatever, and then the camera catches Terry Gordy saying like, "He fucking got me, and he's dropping f-bombs.
Yeah,
on
and he
camera.
was walking down. He's like, "Fuck, he fucking beat me." Fuck. Like he just kept saying that, like down the thing, and I was like,
"Professional."
It all came rushing back to me because I watched that match years and years ago when I tape traded, and I knew it existed, so I had to search it out. And I was glad that I found a good quality of it on YouTube. It's really watchable. Yeah. And I mean, I'm talking about the quality. I don't know if you can, people out there listening, if you can stomach this shit. But like, yeah. And that wasn't even that. Funk and him had their match. Holy shit! Like,
matches. Yeah.
Holy God. The Shoji guy, they fucking had like boxes with sheets of glass in it, and they would backdrop each other in it. Like, and then in the Terry Funk, that famous story from Have a Nice Day, they had explosions in the fucking match. And so Foley didn't shower before he left. He had to get on a plane to go back to the United States, and people kept, what is that smell? What's that smell on the plane the entire ride home? It was his burning flesh because he got second-degree burns on his fucking arm from being too close to an explosion, a firework, because like when they would backdrop each other, there were fireworks under the fucking plywood or wherever the fuck they'd backdrop. So they would launch the fireworks off. So whenever you got backdropped through something, like it would fucking explode. And so he fucking got too close and got second degree. It's not funny, but I have to laugh because it's so fucking violent.
I've had a second degree and they are not fun.
He said he remembers when he gets home, he hugs his wife and he's home and she's like, what is that smell? And he's like, he didn't have the heart to tell her, but he had his sleeves pulled down so she couldn't see. And he was like, oh, I think it was, he said, I just haven't showered or something like that. But she was talking about what's that smell? It was his burning fucking flesh. Like, that's how insane his trip to Japan was. Like, it was fucking nuts. That fucking 4 or 5 month period was fucking insane.
Fucking burn
dude,
brain, bro. Jesus, you don't have to be such a man.
Oh, he was more than a man. Jesus Christ, this guy. Like Mick Foley. So go ahead, Dave. Sorry. Yeah. I'm glad that Craig and I were on the same page.
He returns back to ECW and he feuds with Sandman, Tommy Dreamer, and Mikey Whipwreck. That sounds like a goddamn disaster. But he noticed a sign in the crowd that said Kane Dewey. And this gives Foley the idea to cut a promo bashing the bloodthirsty ECW fan, saying it was crossing the line. He was talking about his family. He would go on to denounce hardcore wrestling. He would purposely wrestle clean and quote-unquote boring matches, complete with wear-down holds. Sounds like a Kevin Owens chin lock. He would later join Raven's flock and finish out his ECW stint on March 9th of 1996.
So his ECW, I mean, you hear the things Austin would always say, if I didn't go to Paul Heyman and ECW, I wouldn't have been able to cut my promo chops. And Foley was already super gifted. He had already been in WCW at this point, obviously. And he was so gifted as a promo, but he got, I'm going to say this, and people are going to be like, what, Jess? And I'm going to be like, I know, right? He got on Rhodes and Flair level of promo in ECW. His promos in ECW and his work there is so profound and fantastic. And I know I sound corny for praising it like this or whatever, but it fuck me, man. Like, it's so good. And I watched a lot of the interviews this week prepping for this episode to bring it all back to me. And I'm just like, God, like, I'm watching this shit from 1995 in 2020. And I'm like, you bury everybody like that today. And I know they do scripted shit, even AEW, which prides himself off non-scripted promos, and they're good. You do not know anything about cutting a promo if you haven't watched Mick Foley in 1995. You don't know shit about it. He was so good. The whole thing about Foley coming in was he befriended Tommy Dreamer in the storyline. And he wanted to go out of his way to tell Tommy Dreamer, I've came from WCW. That's the big land. He praised Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff is the greatest man I've ever known. I had to come here to this fucking... Wow. Yeah, he's great. It's so great, this character.
Straight shade,
and he's telling Tommy Dreamer, I see you wanting to go hardcore because you're listening to the fans, like, chanting you. They're telling you to go hardcore. Don't do it, Tommy. They're scumbags. You want to know why they're scumbags? I saw a sign that says Kane Dewey. That's my 3-year-old son. I'm not even doing this justice. Go back. You just type in Mick Foley Kane Dewey promo, and it'll come up. And it is it's almost 7 minutes of this. He did not stutter. He did not fuck up a word. Every word was powerful. Every movement he made was so like, oh my God. Like again, everybody talks about Dusty Rhodes' hard time promo. This rivals that. I don't care what anybody says. This is all Ric Flair's amazing promos where he's talking about his diamond watches and this is what I do, and his great line of, Ron Garvin, I've spilt more liquor. I've spilt more liquor than money you've made in your life or something like that. I butchered that line, but it was just one of Flair's great promos, And Mick Foley here in 95 in ECW, fucking on par, maybe better in some cases. That's how good all of his promos were.
My adoring crowd, and I saw 2 simple words that changed my life. Kane Dewey. Somebody had taken the time and the effort and the thought to make a sign that said Kane Dewey. And I saw other people around as every moment in my life stopped and focused in on that sign. And the pain that shot through my body became a distant memory, replaced by the pain that will be embedded in my skull till my dying day. Kane Dewey. Kane Dewey. Dewey Foley is a 3-year-old boy. You sick sons of bitches!
I think it's about finding your voice, and he felt like he was underused. He felt slighted, and you take that energy and probably credit to Paul Heyman. You're doing 6-minute, 7-minute takes in Paul Heyman's basement. I think, did he live in Long Island and Queens or something, in a basement with a backdrop? And he's probably getting the best out of these guys. And Foley just channeled all of his energy and anger into these things, and it's just pure art. And I thought of that when I was watching this promo. I was like, how many takes did they do of that? Is that just one take and that's all he had in him to do it? Like, you just know he had build up and he things to say. And he even says he's taking the leap that he made to ECW. He says in the promo, he says like, and Dewey, my son, keeps asking me, I want to go back to Atlanta. Why can't we live in that Victorian house with $100,000 contract, and instead I'm in some crap box in Long Island now? Like, and he just kind of channels all his anger. It's art, man. It's so good.
Yeah, it's a total opposite. Yeah,
too.
he really fucking was pissed at WCW for misusing him, but instead he's like, what if I do the opposite? What if I miss it and I love it? And people who think that I'm an instant fit in ECW because ECW was dirty and grimy and hardcore, right? So who better than Mick Foley to come in there? So he's like, and I think he wrestled a couple matches, one against Terry Funk. That was a hardcore match. And he used that to be like, in the crowd, I saw a sign that said Kane Dewey. Like, what? That's my 3-year-old son. Do you know what it's like to have to go home? Daddy, daddy. Like, and it was awesome. It's amazing. Yeah. Like, and then after that, so after he started doing that character, he did another famous promo called I'm Hardcore. And he had his sports jacket on, a tie, and he had his hair back in a ponytail. And he was like, hi, everyone. Cactus Jack here. No, scratch that. I'm talking to you as Mick Foley. You know, I've been on a road to correcting the wrong of the ECW fan or something like that. And he did this amazing thing where he was just like, you know, but I know everybody I'm hardcore, right? I'm hardcore. I'm hardcore. Hey guys, look at my left ear. That's normal. Look at my right ear. Oh, it's gone because I'm hardcore. I'm hardcore. And he kept doing this whole thing where he'd be like, hey guys, and he would talk about his teeth. Oh, no. My teeth are gone because I'm hardcore. I'm hardcore. Mocking the ECW fan for chanting I'm hardcore. You know, this is hardcore and everything. He was mocking them, but he was also like just playing the opposite. He was playing a heel. To go to ECW where that crowd is as hardcore as you could get, right? Everybody knows how boisterous they were. They were the ones that get the Observer newsletter. They were the ones that fucking tape traded. They were the ones that fucking were sick of the WCW and WWF bubblegum cartoon character shit that they were cramming down our throats. Like, they were tired of it. So here they get their hero, the hardcore, comes to there. And that guy is like, Paul, what if I turn heel on your crowd? And Paul Heyman's like, I love it. Like, you know, and he's like, I love it. Like, and it's just,
that's great.
He had no fear. Most people would go in there and be like, I just love that your crowd accepts me. Oh God, I love ECW. But Foley's like, I mean, they're going to accept me. I'm fucking Mick Foley, right? And not in an arrogant way. He's like, I just fucking got, you know, I got 2nd-degree burns on my fucking arm. Like, I am hardcore, but I'm going to expose them and then flip it around on them and be like, you guys are disgusting. I want to be back there. I want to go back to WCW. I don't want to fucking be here. This is a fucking high school basement. Like, I don't fucking want to be here with you. Like, I'm not hardcore for you. You guys are disgusting. You want to cane my son. He's 3. Like, it's this whole, I'm not even doing it justice. We're going to drop sound clips everywhere here. But I mean, like, holy shit. Like, this stuff is so, like Craig said, it's art.
Put up those fingers. Bang, bang. You see this ear here? It's all there, while this one, it's missing. So are my teeth, which makes me hardcore. I'm hardcore. I'm hardcore. Look, I can't even wear glasses because my ear's missing. I'm hardcore. I'm hardcore. That sounds good. Let me just put this pen behind my ear. Oops. It fell because I'm hardcore. I'm hardcore. I'm hardcore. Oh, pardon me. I seem to have got some watercress sandwich stuck in my teeth. Does anyone have some dental floss? Oh, never mind. This will do the trick because after all, I'm hardcore.
An underrated moment too. It was so funny. I was watching it. November to Remember 1995. He teams with
hardcore fans.
It's Funk and Dreamer versus Raven and Foley, and he's wearing. Mick Foley is wearing a airbrushed T-shirt that has Dungeon of Doom on it, like you'd get it at Disneyland or an amusement park. And on the T-shirt is Butcher, which I don't know if it was Brutus. What was he?
It was Brutus. Yeah, it was Brutus.
And then Kamala, and then Earthquake, whatever Earthquake was called in Dungeon of Doom. And on the back just says Dungeon and Doom in text with a big airbrushed heart around it. And it took me, I just could not take my eyes off it the whole match. I was like,
he's great. He's great.
He enjoyed himself. He got some revenge. And I think he learned his craft a bit and learned who he was and found his voice.
There you go. And that's part 1 of the legacy of Mick Foley. Hit us up on Instagram at O.W.P 2019. Click on Linktree. You can find us on several platforms, including Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. And don't forget, we are now part of the Wrestle Hub family, which is all about wrestling podcast. You can catch it on at the Wrestle Hub on YouTube and Instagram. This is Dave, Jess, and Craig with the O.W.P signing off. Have a good one.
And don't forget, you can catch us on all major streaming platforms: Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and we are now part of Google Podcast. That's right, you Android users. For those of you that prefer Android over any other device, you can now find us on Google Podcast, our wrestling podcast.